So I'm out here on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. It's been pouring rain, and it's not exactly raining too much right now, so I decided to take some photographs while the mist clears, and I'm on a pretty mellow rainforest hike right now. You know, I don't have a specific crazy destination in mind. There isn't some crazy viewpoint at the end of this hike that's going to offer sweeping views for a wide-angle composition. It's more about just finding really intriguing shots of the foliage in here, the different colors, the shades of green, the rainforest flowers. I'm just kind of playing around, looking at the trail, seeing off the sides if there's any interesting trees that I might want to try and work with. But it's a pretty amazing day so far, I gotta say. And I had poke for lunch right before going on this hike, so can't complain. So just trying out some different compositions with the Nikon D850 and 16-35 because I'm standing pretty close to these trees, so certainly a wide angle shot. There's so much dynamic range to work with. It can be a little tricky to get the right flow to the shot with all of the different lighting variables. So it certainly looks interesting at 16 millimeters because these trees kind of bow out to the sides and you get that nice distortion. Doesn't look bad at like 28 millimeters either. So I feel like that's something to play around with. So I felt like this image looked a little bit more interesting while I was capturing it in field than it did when I got back to Lightroom, and that happens more often than not. But then I stumbled around and found a composition I liked a little bit more. I felt like the lighting here worked really well with the bit of glow above the tree line and how some of the foliage is lit up more towards the middle of the photograph. And I did vignette the image quite a bit to accentuate that even further. Even though I did like this image more than the previous one, I felt like the wide-angle lens just wasn't really working for me. So I decided to switch to my telephoto 100-400 lens and see if I could get a little bit more simplicity in my compositions and shoot some trees out in the distance. I think that's enough of this tree. Let's keep exploring. Ooh, that looks pretty cool. I found this giant grove of trees out in the distance and they look really cool. And the lighting just started coming out. It was pouring rain like a minute ago. I had to put everything away. And the sun is barely getting blocked by a little bit of clouds, and it's creating some beautiful light on the tops of these trees. Here's the grouping of trees that I'm playing with, and actually if I zoom out here and tilt the camera down, you can see there's this lone bush down below there that's a little brighter green than the rest of the trees. I thought that would be a fun thing to play around with, so I've been playing around with a few shots to include that little bush down there, and then a few shots that are a little more zoomed in that only include the branches of the trees up top with the foliage getting lit up from the sun. These two images were a lot of fun to capture, and I think the reason for that is just all the different shapes that you can see in these images. Now, admittedly, Kauai was a tough place to photograph, and I think it's because a lot of my work relies on color contrasts. And while I was out here in this rainforest, most of it was green. It was just different shades of green. So it was really about finding, rather than colors, it was more about finding the patterns. And in this photograph, I like how you have the texture down towards the bottom with those little pyramid shapes to the trees, and that leads you up to the very thin vertical tree trunks. And then you have the horizontal patterns that kind of break it up a bit with those lit up branches and lit up foliage. So I'm doing like F9 for these, and I've got it on a timer mode because the exposure is just a little too long to be hand holding these shots. So this image ended up being one of my favorites. I loved the chaos here with the different twisty shapes to the branches, matched with that vivid burst of yellow that's found throughout the image. I loved those little bursts of the flowers. And in this image, it almost looks like those flowers are just sort of floating in midair. It kind of looks like they're just splatters of yellow paint throughout the photograph. I thought that was a really nice touch. I feel like the birds are cheering me on. Birds are like, Michael, get your composition, you can do it. In the beginning of the video, I had mentioned there wasn't really a vantage point at the end to photograph. There wasn't like a goal or a destination in mind, but on the top of the hill, I did find a pretty cool perspective, and here's what I shot. This view was really spectacular, and the lighting made it even more dramatic, and I'm not entirely sure if my image of the view did this moment justice, but I just loved all the different trees and foliage, the shades of green, and then those little bursts of orange flowers that come through the top of the tree line. Here's another image that I captured from a nearby hillside, and this one was quite interesting. I loved the abstraction here, and again, all of that chaos. I love the chaotic nature of this photograph and the different repetitions of shapes and patterns you have here. I think that those splashes of yellow mixed in with the different shades of green added a really nice touch to this image. After capturing those images, I decided to hike down the hill, and then I made my way to Hanalei Bay for sunset. So I'm here at Hanalei Bay, or overlooking Hanalei Bay. There was some light rays that came out on these mountains, which was really beautiful to witness. Now I actually just set up a quick time lapse of the rain kind of pouring through the mountains with a waterfall out in the distance. And the waterfall was hidden by this beautiful patch of rain that was passing by. And I think the waterfall got revealed in my time lapse. So this image was just spectacular to witness in person, and I really liked the way the photograph came out. The light rays were just piercing through the scene and came out so vivid in the image, and I really loved the three ridge lines here and how you have some of those silhouetted trees on the top of the first two ridges. Now, this image actually depicts the start of the famous Nepali coast, which is a place I'm going to be photographing in the next video. This image was my absolute favorite from this series of light rays. I loved the texture that you can see here in this big beam of light that's coming from that
dark, menacing storm cloud towards the top of the photograph. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on these two images. Which one of these two light ray photographs do you like more? Do you like this image right here that focuses a little bit more heavy on those three ridge lines? Or do you like this image that has the bigger beam of light and the texture shining through? Please let me know in the comments. Oh yeah, the time lapse. Here's how that turned out.
Funny, even as I'm talking, it's starting to pour rain again. Pretty much does that. If you've ever been to Hawaii, though, it'll do that pretty much every day. A little bit too much rain for the cameras. That's probably good.
I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more. And stay tuned for the next video where I explore beautiful scenes above the Nepali coast. I'll catch you in the next one.